The law of supply and demand. One of the most basic concepts of economics is supply and demand. These are really two separate things, but they are almost always talked about together. Supply is how much of something that is available. For example, if you have 9 baseball cards, then your supply of baseball cards is 9. If you have 6 apples, then your supply of apples is 6. Demand is how much of something people want. It sounds a little bit harder to measure, but it really isn't. To measure demand, we can use a very simple numbering system just like the one we use for supply. For example, if 8 people want baseball cards, then we can say that the demand for baseball cards is 8. If 6 people want apples, then we can say that the demand for apples is 6. So we have supply, which is how much of something you have, and demand, which is how much of something people want. Put the two together, and you have supply and demand. Now, how do you show the relationship between the two? One way is to use the price of something. If more people want something, they will be willing to pay more for it. A good example is the newest basketball shoes. Everybody wants them, and they will be willing to pay more than they normally would to get them. The demand goes up because more people want them, and the supply goes down. The price also goes up. Why? Because the seller knows he or she can get more money for the product because it is in demand. In the same way, the price will go down when the demand goes down and the supply goes up. When the new style of basketball shoes comes out, everybody wants the new shoes. The old shoes do not seem so new anymore. The seller still wants to sell these older shoes since he or she has a lot in stock still. So the price goes down. Why is this? The seller hopes that people will be willing to buy the older shoes at a lower price. After all, the older shoes aren't that much older or worse than the brand new ones. What does this all mean? It means that you can track supply and demand by also tracking price. If something has a high price, you can usually conclude that the demand for that item is high and the supply is low. This is not always the case, it is usually the case. In the same way, if something has a low price, you can usually conclude that the demand for that item is low and the supply is high. Supply and demand are two very strong market concepts. Studying the two of them can give you a good idea of what people like to buy and sell. You can track both supply and demand by comparing the price of an item over time. To study supply and demand is to understand economics at its most basic level.